So good afternoon. This is Steve Mazzacane. This is the Steve Mazzacane podcast. It's 4 o'clock. We'll give it a few minutes to let people log on before we jump in. But just make sure I have the sound off on my computer. So good afternoon, guys. You know, we had probably one of the most loaded weekends we've ever had. So we have a lot of topics to talk about, and there's some we'll put off till tomorrow and possibly Wednesday, but it was pretty amazing. And obviously sad about Ginsburg. You know, we've talked about Supreme Court decisions here before, and so I took the time over the weekend to read a few of her Supreme Court. Some of people from a social media standpoint were pushing this dissent thing, and if you read some of even her dissents, one thing you realize when you start looking at the Supreme Court and reading the decisions by so many members of the Supreme Court is no matter how or what side of the aisle their ideology may be, these are some of the most brilliant people you'll ever meet. Legal minds that are fascinating. And you can read decisions that you may not agree with and just be blown away. I'm convinced the vast majority of people never read these decisions. They see a headline and say they got their way or they didn't, but these decisions are truly amazing. And she was one of them. We'll talk more about some of the decisions and things she said tomorrow. Today we'll talk about the impacts of that a little bit more. But before we go into that, I want to read a post made by the Brantford Police Department. And I did not know this officer well. I knew him in passing. He was in, either at Starbucks or Hornet's Nest most days. He was in there quite often, and it's amazing how quickly you can have someone be part of the community and part of lives, and then an illness can take them, and it's unbelievable. And so I'm just going to read the post from the Brantford Police Department on the passing of this officer, Officer Manor, and because of all the topics that we have to talk about, and we'll talk about the market and COVID and Ginsburg and politics, losing somebody who gave decades of his life to the towns he served, especially in this age where we have people talking about defunding the police and take money away from them. And it's important to remember the sacrifice they make every single day and keeping us safe. And the words I use talking about first responders, whether they're police or fire, is that if we're leaving a scene and they're running in, they have the ultimate respect from me. And so I can't say this any better than the Brantford Police Department can, so I'm just going to go ahead and read what they posted. It says, "We are extremely saddened to announce the passing of our brother and friend, Brantford Police Officer Christopher Manor. Officer Manor passed away at his home on Saturday, September 19th, 2020. Officer Manor retired from the North Brantford Police Department in December 2011 after 25 years of dedicated service to the citizens of North Brantford. He honorably served at the rank of sergeant for much of his 25-year career in North Brantford. His passion for police work would not allow him to leave the profession, and he was hired by Brantford Police in April of 2012. At the Brantford Police Department, Officer Manor continued to mentor new officers. He worked as a field training officer where he took pride in introducing new officers to members of the community. He had a natural ability to speak with anyone and quickly gain their trust. Officer Manor was well respected in both communities that he served and seemed to know everyone." It's true. The true definition of a community police officer, he was a longtime sports coach at the high school and intermediate school levels. He coached in both the towns of Brantford and North Brantford. Officer Manor previously coached the North Brantford Intermediate cross-country team, the North Brantford High School basketball team, and currently the Brantford girls freshman basketball team. He also assisted on other teams and at the varsity level. Officer Manor will truly be missed by all of our members of our department. He came to work every day with a huge smile on his face, even in troubling times. He lived life to the fullest and always carried a positive attitude. He cared deeply about the community and everyone in it. Officer Manor lit up the room anytime he had a chance to talk about his children. His children meant everything to him, and he made sure everyone knew it. We will always cherish the many, many great memories we have of Officer Manor. We thank him for his dedication to our community, both on duty and off duty. Officer Manor was one of a kind, and we will never forget him. So our hearts certainly go out to his family, his police family, his community family. You know, if any of our lives end having made the impact that some of these people make, we were successful. We were successful. So um, we're sorry for your loss to that family. Okay, we will go on to topics that we normally spend more on. Um, so before we get to Ginsburg, you know, the market dropped. Uh, it's made a huge rebound today, but it was down almost 980 points. And the market kind of gives us a good opportunity to look at what's happening from an entire news perspective, because we've talked many times about the job of government to provide some level of stability, some level of, I don't want to use a beacon because I don't want to over romanticize it, but some level of strength when everything else is kind of going crazy. And right now, we have a lot of things happening. COVID is spiking in Europe. Britain is looking at a potential another shutdown. I'm looking at the market as we go here. And an election itself brings about uncertainty. We don't know what's going to happen. So the market's going to wonder what's going to happen with who gets in and what will the process be, who wins the Senate. The House, we kind of know the Democrats will have. And the market today basically said, okay, there's just too much. Between COVID and between the election and now Ginsburg throwing a massive bomb into this election, and a massive, massive drop by the market. So over almost 1,000-point drop today after being down the last 2 days of last week. So this could be a very interesting time where everything kind of teeters. And for so long during COVID and during all these crises, the market was kind of still going up and up and up. We don't know if that will change. And if that changes, along with the inability to get a stimulus bill, along with the Ginsburg problem, along with the huge threats going back and forth on who to appoint and retaliation, what have you going on over Ginsburg, along with COVID, we could be heading for an absolute disaster. And if we step back, and part of what we try to do on this podcast is part of our discussions as historians and look at things, and not as a member of a party, not as somebody who is in the middle of this, but step back and say, you know, what's happening? What are the pieces at work in all of this? And what do we see potentially foresee happening going forward? That's the kind of look we want to take at this. And not, I want the Democrats to win, I want the Republicans to win, but almost as historians, pull back a little bit. I have to apologize if I'm talking softly. My head is pounding. For some reason, I have a really bad headache this afternoon. I took some Tylenol, but we'll see if we'll see how long it can go. But anyway, let's talk about Ginsburg. I'm sorry, I'm not looking at comments. I apologize for that. Let me pull up. Yeah, right. And Ray, we heard good news. I saw your post. So Ray Ingraham is posting. He was going through a battle with his daughter in Alaska about getting her allowed to see her husband, who had been in a serious accident. It looked like she was finally able to see him. So congratulations on that. That was a battle that took on national proportions as it was all over media throughout the country. So that's a significant win. She was able to get into the hospital and visit her husband. So I'm moving a little slow today because my head's pounding. So COVID. So we'll talk more about Ginsburg herself as the. Glad to hear that, Ray. Ray Ingraham just posted, yep, we're in with him now. And within seconds, the discussion turned to a replacement. Now, I wrote 4 years ago, one of the reasons I did not vote for Trump was because of potential Supreme Court nominees. So we always knew, you know, we knew Ginsburg had medical issues and we knew her age. And so there was always going to be the risk of Trump putting in a few different people. And after Bush put in a few people, you have a 5-4 lead by the conservatives on the Supreme Court. And with this nomination, which it looks like the Republicans are going to try to put through, it would be 6-3. And that would be 6-3 with young members on the court, which means they would likely have a conservative court for at least a decade, if not a couple decades. Now, that has not always been terrible. For example, earlier this year, there were some decisions that were pro-liberal when it came to the rights of gay people, some rulings on healthcare, some provisions in the healthcare bill Those judges often considered conservative. Their legal analysis led them to go the other way. And so Republicans and conservatives weren't always happy with the end result. So just because the politicians are up in arms doesn't necessarily mean you'll get terrible decisions out of the Supreme Court, no matter who's on there. These tend to be very intelligent, thoughtful people. And even if their ideology may not line up with what's being presented, they can ask themselves if it's their role or not to make that decision. That said, 6-3, what will happen almost immediately is in lower courts, cases will be filed that can potentially get to the Supreme Court in 2 to 3 or 4 years. That can be game changing. And certainly, one of the posts that I made was abortion now becomes front and center. Now, someone reported to that it's women's health care. Abortion and women's health care are, yes, they're certainly interrelated, but abortion is kind of the mother of all issues. And, I'll start by saying my stance on abortion. I hate the idea of abortion, but feel as if I don't have the right to tell anyone else what they can or can't do. And that applies to a very difficult topic like abortion. So I certainly understand the mentality that, it's my body, I have a right to do that. And I also understand how difficult that decision is. There's this belief that conservatives often put out there of people just like randomly, casually having abortions, may be true in extremely rare circumstances, but I know people who have had abortions and they have been emotionally draining getting to that decision. I don't wish that on anyone. And so I certainly have sympathy for that. That said, I can understand the other side of this. And I've spoken to many, in fact, Democrats that are anti-abortion that have said they felt like they're fighting for a person that doesn't have their own voice. Just like you would defend somebody who was getting beat up, who was weak. Most people would run into that. They felt the same way, and I can understand that. So that's just, I'm saying my view on abortion before we get into this conversation, because we can understand it's one of the few issues where if you can stand back and look at both sides and look at the mentality from both sides, you get it. You can see why the emotions are stirred so high on each side of this. And I call that the mother of all issues. Women's health care, in general, in my opinion, is another opinion. I don't know how we're still having those debates. I mean, to be honest with you, how are we not getting coverage for women's issues? How are we not getting time off for children? How are we not getting, all of those issues? Those seem so much more cut and dry than, listen, let's just be on the right side of history. Abortion, I can see both sides of that. So so there's that aspect of it, and that will almost certainly happen in the court. But some of the complaints we're hearing now, I'm sorry, my head is just pounding. I'm trying to keep myself focused. Give me 1 second. I haven't gone to the gym in 2 days, and I think it's kind of catching up with me. But almost immediately we heard from Republicans and Democrats on how, we're not going to bring this to a vote, or we're going to bring this to a vote, and we're going to get a name in there. We have to remember something. The hypocrisy, both sides are calling the other side hypocritical, and both sides are hypocritical. The Republicans refused, when Obama put up Merrick Garland, granted 8 or 9 months before an election, refused to do it, saying it was inappropriate. That was nonsense. Democrats killed them and said they should do their job. We have the exact opposite happening now, where the Republicans are saying we have an obligation to do it now, and Democrats are saying no, you should wait until the outcome of the election. Both have the complete opposite stance than they had 4 years ago, so both are hypocrites. I don't know. There's no other way to look at that. Politicians will do what's in their interest politically. If we're looking for a level of honesty and straightforwardness and being non-hypocritical, that probably ends at the local level, or maybe some of the state level. Yeah, I don't know, Kim. I'm just, my head is pounding. So I don't know. Yeah, I don't really know. Maybe I'll go take a cold shower and see what happens. Sometimes I can go to if I don't feel good, I go to the gym and kind of like sweat it out a little bit, and it helps. I'm not someone who gets sick often, so I don't know what's going on. In any event, so we have the hypocrisy on both sides. But over the weekend, the thought that hit me at having the fever pitch be so high, at having the anger, often anger that doesn't have, these are political issues, but these aren't people's families dying. They're not, at some point, politics is part of our life. It should never be our life. We should never have that absurd, crazy, can't control yourself anger that we seem to have all over social media and is posted constantly, and the constant name calling and demonizing anybody who disagrees with us kind of thing. So we should be better at compartmentalizing it, but we're not right now. And there are significant concerns that I have. One is this: Republicans push this through, and the idea of retribution from Democrats is overwhelming. Now, when Obama took office, there was a huge push from Democrats to hold George Bush and what was his vice president's name? I can't remember, I forgot it, but hold them accountable. War crimes, put them in jail, all that kind of stuff. And Obama, who was nothing close to far left, I know his opponents call him far left, he was very, very much moderate, refused to do that. He refused to engage in that discussion, didn't want to take part of that. And Biden will likely have the same situation. So, by the way, in the polling, we won't know the impact for another 4 or 5 days on polling. Oh, I'm sorry, Cheney. I'm really sorry. My head is just fogging right now. But all of the numbers, and I did pull this up, we talked about Biden needing to get to that 50% threshold. He has reached that 50% threshold in Wisconsin, and he's getting closer in other states. Once he hits 50% in 2 or 3 of the key swing states, it becomes very, very hard, unless all the polls are wrong, and we've seen that before, it becomes very hard for Trump to crack that path back there. And Biden's getting closer and closer. Now, we won't know the impact of these events on polling for another couple days. And granted, I take polling with a grain of salt, but that 50% number is a huge number. So Biden's numbers are going up. In fact, it was almost tied from the box office. I look at what the bookies are setting this at, and Biden's at about 54% now. Trump's at 45%. So here's what could happen. Republicans push this through, angering the hell out of Democrats to the point of, like, we go not just marching through the streets and not a couple of riots, but more. They get in, they want retribution, they do something called, get rid of the filibuster and stock these. So they add positions to the Supreme Court, and that's being discussed now, where you have 13 members, add 4 liberals and control it. You'll have the far right start forming militias, and they'll start rallying, and we're going to have full-on crazy, absolute crazy in this country, and that path is getting closer and closer and closer. You'd like to be able to say there are things that can happen now to stop that, but I don't think there are. And this push from both sides, I'd love to see the moderates rise. I'd love to see, America Chapter 2, Sequel 2, the moderates rise and drown out the far left and far right, but I just don't see it happening. And the anger and the emotion on both sides is so incredible right now. If we were to stop for a minute and read some of Ginsburg's decisions, read some Supreme Court decisions, we might calm down. But the reactions were so quick. We heard she passed away. Democrats said, oh shit, this is before the election. Republicans said, this is great, we can stock the court. Trump said, this is a way for me to get evangelicals going. This is a way for me to shore up my base and make sure they come out and get some of those anti-abortion undecideds. And so everybody has something to gain by using her death. And the result might be an absolute disaster. So it's the first time I've ever watched politics. I tend to watch politics like it's a movie, like I'm watching history happen. This weekend was the first time I ever watched it with a little bit of fear, because there is not rational beliefs taking place right now. And if you are anywhere on social media, I'm seeing people who are friends of mine, who are reasonable, logical, intelligent people posting things that are evil, that are disgusting. The idea of, and this is a legal discussion. The Republicans, quite frankly, have the right, they had the legal right to not appoint someone 4 years ago. They have a legal right to appoint someone now. We don't elect people up until the 6 months before they take office. We elect people to serve 4-year terms or 2-year terms, whatever they are. So they're in office from the day they were inaugurated. They're in office to the day someone else is inaugurated in place. There's nothing wrong about what they're doing. Can Democrats to get the Senate and the presidency and go in and change the rules, get rid of the filibuster, and then stop the court? Yes, legally they can. So all of these things are possible. They're not that far off. If I look at the numbers now, right now the projected numbers are basically either tied in the Senate or the Republicans have a 2-seat advantage. That's it. Part of me thinks, man, I hope if Biden's going to win, I hope the Dems take the Senate, because then something can happen. Like, I'm looking for like infrastructure bills and actual real things to take place, which everybody's at a stalemate, being different parties. But at the same time, it could be a massive shit show where people are trying to get back at each other. And I'm not convinced Biden has the strength Obama had. Obama had enormous strength. He can stand up to his party, and he was so reasonable and such a great communicator that he can placate the party and move forward in the right direction. He can take angry people, take their complaints, and then say, okay, I heard you, but we're going to move forward and we're not going to go after Bush for war crimes. Yes, I heard you on fracking, but we have to worry about our need for foreign oil. So we're going to allow some of this. I know you're not happy with it, but we're going to allow some of this. He can do those things. I'm not sure Biden's that guy. Quite frankly, I'm not sure anybody. Obama was a unique person. I know there are people who hated Obama, but I am an Obama fan for that reason. He was a brilliant communicator. He understood the bigger picture. Can't wait for his book to come out next month, by the way. So this weekend was the first time I'm sitting there watching. I don't normally watch CNN or MSNBC, but I watched some CNN, and hearing these quotes and hearing the left and right, that I said to myself, this can be an absolute disaster. And if you think we have loose gun laws now, I think the only stock I'd want to buy right now are gun manufacturers, because the gun sales are about to skyrocket. About to skyrocket as the fear increases. And it's going to be a very, very interesting time. Listen, tomorrow I want to talk more about the decisions of Ginsburg, some of the things that she wrote. I continue to be someone who is blown away by the intelligence of Supreme Court justices, and Republicans or Democrats. And as much as they are attacked politically, once they're on the court, they make decisions that make sense. And even if you disagree with them, you can understand the logic and reasoning that goes into so many of their decisions. So we'll talk more about that tomorrow. I'm going to cut a little bit short today because my head is just pounding. And I do feel hot. So I don't know if I'm getting something. Thankfully, I can do this socially distanced from anybody else. But I'm not coughing or anything, so I don't think it's COVID related, but maybe the flu. Maybe it's just early. I came home from work around 1 o'clock and I fell asleep. I just slept for about an hour and a half. And something's not right. So tomorrow I'll hopefully come back and feel a little better and be a little more energized and have, yell about something. But all right, guys. Well, I'm gonna take it easy. If I can hopefully feel a little better, I'm gonna try to go to the gym. Sometimes that works to get this out of my system, whatever it is. But I appreciate you coming on today. I'm sorry, because Monday's usually our biggest day. Steve, you're absolutely correct. The relationship between Ginsburg and Scalia, and when you read about it, when you see the words they had for each other, I watched an interview with both of them. It's amazing. It really is. I was saying the other day, I'm single, so I date, I would say, fairly often, and I'm on a couple dating sites. And one of the things that jumps out at you in our society today is, as you go through profiles on dating sites, the amount of dating sites that say, if you're a Trump supporter, don't even bother. Just swipe left, right? Don't come near me if you're for Trump, or if you're a snowflake, don't come near me. And I actively seek out people who think differently than I do. I want people who can articulate a different opinion. And so to see that happen in our society, we are choosing not to spend time with anybody who feels differently. With our social friends, with our social media, we delete people who have a different opinion. We surround ourselves with people who think like we do. That's how cults are formed. That's how groupthink takes place. And you had two of the ultimate thinkers, two people that can set a direction for the country, interpret laws, and they saw the value of, one, humor. They made each other laugh. But two, of having those conversations, of having those discussions, of being okay, heated, talking to somebody you care about. We've taken that away. We've said to each other, no, I don't want you in my life if you feel differently politically. You're a Trump fan, so therefore I don't want to have dinner with you. You're a snowflake, a far left person, so I don't want to have dinner or coffee or drinks with you. That's crazy. It's nuts. And I've had, listen, I'm pretty far, I don't want to say far left, but I'm lean left, moderate to left, right? Social issues, certainly left. Sleep with whoever you want. Get married, knock yourself out. Financial issues, other things, I'm a little tighter because I understand finance, right? I trade stocks, I understand how it works, I understand the impact of finance on the real world. But I've never had a conversation with somebody who was reasonable, but I didn't walk away thinking, okay, I could at least understand more where they're coming from. I may not agree, but that's how we expand our thinking. I would have given anything I have to be a fly on the wall for a dinner between Ginsburg and Scalia. Can you imagine what that must have been like? Two people who genuinely enjoyed each other's company, who were brilliant, truly brilliant people. And we would be far better off as a country, as an individual, as people, if we said to ourselves, I want to find people that feel the complete opposite way as I do and have dinner with them. Smart people who can articulate a position, not just to people, yelling and screaming in the streets, but who can articulate why they feel a certain way. I want dinner with that person. I want to spend time with those people. It may not change your mind, but it expands your thinking, and the respect you end up having for a different viewpoint changes everything. We've said on this podcast before, don't take a stand on an issue until you can articulate the opposing view. And that's how you do that. And we've gotten away from the brilliant relationship that Ginsburg and Scalia had, and we'll talk about that more tomorrow. Once you start seeing more of that, once you start seeing their decisions, once you start seeing them talk about real issues, legal issues, you realize how brilliant the Constitution was, that you can have multiple opinions on the same document and both be right, and you have far more respect for the decisions that are made, even if you disagree with those decisions. And I don't think any of the kids from today that are marching in the streets, on the left or the right, have any idea what those decisions are, can articulate the vast majority of the time what they think or even believe. It'd be nice that we talk about the special relationship that existed between, I think, Clinton and Blair. I think the special relationship was Ginsburg and Scalia. To be so polar opposites politically, to be so close, is something that we need to do far more often. Seek out those that think differently. Listen to them. Find out why they think the way they do. And all of these problems will go away once we start understanding why other people think the way they do. All right, I apologize for speaking. I'm sure I spoke slowly today because I'm not feeling well. Hopefully I'll be fine tomorrow. If I cancel tomorrow, you know that I'm just in bed and out of it. But I will I'll try to come back tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Thank you for the support. And see, it was truly sad seeing comments from the left when Scalia. You did not see that from the right with Ginsburg passing. You know what? You didn't. I'm not, well, maybe I didn't see. Your comment is, it was truly sad seeing comments from the left when Scalia passed. You did not see that from the right with Ginsburg passing. You know what? I'm going to tell you this. In my experience, especially of late, the left is angrier. I'm a Democrat. I am the left. I agree with much of it, but they're angrier. The ability to not get your way in a calm manner doesn't seem to exist anymore. The right's always yelling about the Constitution, and to a certain extent, it is. The Constitution is open for interpretation, right? They're talking about their rights, and sometimes it's a little crazy, but sometimes it's not. Like, you have gun rights. You can fight for gun rights. Doesn't mean you're evil or violent. You can fight for that. The left, basically, if you disagree, you're a fool and an idiot. I've been called, I don't know anybody who knows me who would call me stupid, but I've been called stupid more times by people on the left than you could imagine, who are legit, have no idea what they're talking about. Like, have no idea what the law is. And I go on Chris Murphy's Facebook page, or I go on some of these left elected officials' Facebook pages, and we saw this in Madison with this recent issue with the serious bullying. If you post one thing that anywhere remotely questions what Chris Murphy is saying, you are immediately pegged as a massive Trump supporter and a jerk and a loser, and you hate people and kids and babies and puppies. The left has to do some self-reflecting. Be more like Obama. You can talk about the other side. You may not always love the other side, but you do so in a respectful way without attacking people. Don't claim to love Obama and then so quickly ignore the way he treated people and the way he spoke to people. In any event, I've talked more than I should. Tomorrow at 4 o'clock, we'll be back, guys. I hope you have a great night. Enjoy. It's beautiful weather outside. I'm going to open the windows and try to cool down a little bit because I am a little bit hot. But I will talk to you tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Thank you so much for joining.